Welcome back to the SUSINDPRO project, Chapter 4, Infrastructure Planning. The first thing one should ask about building a community is, what infrastructure does a town normally need? I wrote down some essential infrastructure points that I could think of and also added a specific point to almost each. So for instance, if you have the water system, I'd build the community next to a river, so you can have the water extracted from a river. Then regarding garbage disposal, I'd use a pure recycle system. So I'd use only materials that could be recycled and avoid making garbage as much as possible. Avoid producing garbage as much as possible. Then sewage, I'd attempt a harmless waste disposal to minimize environmental damage. So for instance, avoid chemicals that are toxic to the environment around one. Then electricity, I would only use extremely renewable sources. For instance, if you build it next to a river, you could build a hydropower station there. Maybe solar panels. Solar panels is a little bit of a different thing. I'd use hydropower mostly. Normally, towns also have a fire department, hospitals, police station, roads, and also businesses. And of course, they have a town hall to pretty much realistically demonstrate my plan. I chose a town in Iowa called Farragut. It's around 24 square kilometers on which to build the community. So the community in this case would be around 35 square kilometers. So what would a SUSINDPRO town look like in comparison to a regular town? SUSINDPRO town would have residential areas where people would build their houses and maybe they have their gardens, as I already explained showed in the house building chapter 2. Then one would have a town hall to discuss problems and recent events, important stuff, and also where people would meet to decide democratically about things. But that comes later. Then a community hall to party, meet, for funerals, stuff like that. Then a fire department. Obviously, you're gonna need that if a fire erupts somewhere. Then a police department. That's gonna be a little bit, depends if it's necessary. Probably, maybe it's gonna be necessary. Then a hospital, obviously, you're gonna need that. A storage hall. I'm gonna explain that a little bit later. So basically it means a storage hall which holds all collectively gathered resources. Yeah, I'm gonna explain that later. Then an electricity house, or place to store electricity. Then a workshop hall. I'm gonna explain that later as well. I'd summarize it as a place where people can build their own stuff, and basically a workshop which has various tools and machinery to build certain things. and which is available to everyone. Then a compost storage, which is basically where one would put the organic waste they produce and use it for compost for fields. Then, of course, you're gonna need a water storage to distribute it to the residential areas. You're gonna need a barn to keep animals, but I don't know if that's gonna be around that area. Maybe it's gonna be built a little bit outside. I built one here. Don't really know why. Maybe you're gonna build inside, maybe you're gonna build outside. I'm not sure about that yet. Then there will be living quarters. I mean, most people are gonna have houses. People that come here are going to live in the living quarters before they build a house, because they're gonna have to build their house. And also a park, for obvious reasons, because you need a place to relax after a hard work day, and you need nature, obviously. So that pretty much sums the inside of the town up. And also the brown things, the brown markings are gonna be roads. The blue ones is gonna be the river. The X's are gonna be the exits, and it's gonna be there is gonna be a fence, but not like a security fence, but just to keep everything nice and tidy, like a little wooden fence or something. So around the inside of the community, there will be fields. I chose some fields. For instance, I chose to include, obviously you're gonna need forestry to grow the wood you're gonna need for building. Then you're gonna need agriculture, otherwise you can't grow food. I also included a metal depot, because for some you're gonna need metal, obviously, for tools and machines and stuff like that. You're gonna need metal, and there's gonna be a depot which mostly will store recycled metals, because obviously where should you get the metal otherwise? Because if you have a mine next to it, but I don't think that's gonna be the case. So it's probably gonna be cheaply bought recycled metal from the next town over. And also I included some livestock room, enough room for the animals to live healthy and happily. I really want to put a big focus on the well-being of the animals. And that pretty much sums up the whole community. The town will try to run on a zero waste model, so as much as possible. Recycling and waste avoidance will be obviously a core focus. Otherwise, that's not sustainable if you create too much garbage. Then the household waste will be used to fertilize the fields. For instance, the toilet waste and the food waste of the residents. Then the main material for building will be wood from the forestry. The metal will be collected from recycled depots from neighboring towns, because there is no other possibility to get metal. You're gonna have to collect metal from outside of the town and then recycle this as much as you can, so you don't have to buy too much new stuff. If you recycle it, you won't lose the resource as quickly. Then power will be collected via hydroelectric power plants or solar panels. Like I said already, I'd put more focus on hydropower, because creating solar panels is a little bit more environmentally not very good for environment, and also challenging, because the materials in a solar panel are quite rare and have to be imported. And that's not so much the case with hydropower plants. And plastic will be avoided as much as possible, and environmentally friendly alternatives will be used. For instance, plastic will only be used for places where it is unavoidable. For instance, in medical usage. I think medical wise, one shouldn't spare any costs to save lives, but in every other case, it's far more avoidable to use plastic. So this is what the town would look like when you scale out a little. And also the communities should be able to scale and build near each other, because then they can stay in contact with each other and help each other. They obviously can and will probably specialize in certain ways, but in general they will have pretty similar rules and planning. For instance, in the hospital, one would also have, for instance, a research group, and they would research different stuff and would share it with the other communities. And yeah, so much for the infrastructure planning. Next chapter is going to focus on agriculture and production. I hope you enjoyed chapter 4. I'd like it if you would leave a like. If not, that's okay too. Listening is also fine by me. Thank you for listening, and until next time.